explained, as Tracy mentioned, I've had to build my own level of resilience in the past, having worked in the medical industry for a number of years and then faced the retrenchment and had to sort of re-pivot my own work style. So if we look at resilience, I've put together some terminology here, which we'll be touching on during my presentation, looking at some of the letters for which resilience stands. So we really need some resolve in how we're going to address the changes in the way we work, including energy. Sometimes we would need a systematic approach as well as some industriousness on our part. It is very challenging, I must say, to pivot and change and work in the current environment, especially because we have a pandemic. There always needs to be a level of learning and growth, because I've had to learn a lot. Even though I had worked for many years in my particular chosen industry, I've had to learn and grow with new things. There has to be an intent and a purpose in making these changes and a level of enthusiasm. I cannot mention how much networking is important. Also, cleverly handling your situation and not always looking at it negatively is really important. And together, also changing the way you work demands a level of emotional intelligence with others. So if we look at briefly at resilience and what resilience at work means, it's recognized as a defining characteristic of employees who deal well with the stresses and strains of the modern workplace. Also, it's a person's capacity to respond to pressure and the demands of daily life. And I believe we are facing a lot of demands, pressures, and challenges in the current environment. There are various dictionary definitions of resilience, and these include flexibility, suppleness, durability, strength, speed of recovery, and buoyancy. But in short, resilience affects our ability to bounce back, and bounce back we must. When we are down and out, we need to think about how we can bounce back. Also, we need to look at something called grit. And I must ask you to look at a TED talk by someone called Angela Duckworth, who presents a lot around grit. And resilience is the ability to get up when you've been knocked down or come back fighting stronger after a loss. There is a level of optimism to continue when you've experienced some failures. This is often easier said than done. And grit is your motivational drive that keeps you engaged on a difficult task over a sustained period of life, of time or life. And also grit is perseverance. And I must say for myself, perseverance has played a very important role. So in the literature, there are 3 P's of resilience. I'm just going to mention them very briefly. If you want to know more, look at some literature by someone called Seligman. There's 3 things that can hinder recovery from adversity, and that's personalization. So a person should take responsibility for failure, but should not see themselves as a failure. Pervasiveness, the belief that an event will affect all areas of our life instead of just one area. People who have this mindset might find it hard to carry on with life because they feel there's no way out of this situation. Permanence, that's a belief that your feelings or situation will last forever, and this is not the case. This may cause you to become overwhelmed, but however, let us remember that pain and pleasure are temporary. Even with COVID, there will be light at the end of the tunnel. So we can build our resilience by adjusting the perception of adversity. I think that's really the key. From the South African scenario, if we look at the South African economy currently, we've shed about 2.2 million jobs in the second quarter of 2020, according to Stats SA. Of the 14.2 million persons who were employed in quarter 2 of 2020, more than half were expected to work during the national lockdown by companies and organizations. Most of those who actually worked during the national lockdown did so from their usual place of work. However, 17.6% indicated that they worked from home. The share of those who work from home were higher among professionals and managers, indicating access to tools of trade to facilitate work from home. And unfortunately, the South African unemployment rate rose to 32.6% in the first quarter of 2021 from 30.8% in the previous period. So it was the highest jobless rate since quarterly data became available in 2008, with more people searching for work amid the easing of lockdown restrictions. Just to show you a little graph of what our unemployment rate looks like at the moment, unfortunately, it is on the rise, and therefore we need to build resilience. We need to look at other opportunities. So if we look at some information, and this is shared by Deloitte, you can actually look at their website. There are a lot of tools that they have given us that are useful. So each organization will likely need to pull 3 levers differently in the way we're going to work in the future. And so also to create a recipe for future resilience. So we look at 3 frameworks. That is our work, our workforce, and our workplace. If we look at our work, in a digital world, machines and humans will be able to do what they do best independently and in concert with each other. And also we're going to have automation. This will drive efficiency. Humans will focus on innovation, creativity, and problem solving. The workforce in the future, organizations will identify, attract, and engage people with the right skills and experience to achieve the mission and the purpose. And there will be all types of workers in future organizations. So we need to also look at a level of continuous learning. As I'd like to add here, is never stop learning. There's always something to learn. During the period of the COVID pandemic, there have never been more opportunities to learn remotely than ever before. Also regarding the workplace, the future workplace will bend the physical and virtual environments, will deliver consistent employer identity to all types of employees, contractors, and other stakeholders. Personalized experiences will empower people to be their best and have balanced selves. And there are also a lot of collaboration tools and platforms that will support dynamic work locations. An agile mindset will be the norm, and organization will value adaptability over procedure. I think this is key, the adaptability to change. I know there are some challenges currently in the workplace that we need to look at, and that is that companies are downsizing, small businesses are closing, there's a lot of retrenchment happening. Some companies are also asking employees to take early retirement to allow job opportunities for younger people. We're also looking at capacity building and transformation in the South African context. We have to consider the digital era and automation, as well as social distancing and remote work. And that last bullet has really become key during the COVID pandemic, how we work and still social distance as well. So we've had to do a lot of remote meetings, and this is a remote connection in which a small collaborative team of participants can communally view and control a person's desktop. And remote meetings can be used for online meetings, for screen sharing, for webinars, and more. If you look around you, there are many webinars on offer, many of them for free as well, where one can learn new things. So just some strategies for running effective remote meetings if this is something you're going to do. You first need to consider if you need a meeting at all. What I have found is there are so many meetings happening in organizations. So think about if you need a meeting, and if yes, always keep it short and to the point and have an agenda. Punctuality is very important. Start and end on time. Record all your meetings and be intentional about your communication. So sometimes we need to leave space for silence. We need to watch for non-verbal responses. The chat option is really important because we can learn from one another. It's important as well because we're engaging remotely to call people by name and have an exit phrase as well. We need to have agreement as well on muting and unmuting and video, no video protocols, because some people feel more comfortable in not sharing video as well. And always important to have feedbacks or do a poll of how meetings went or webinars progressed. So if we look more into detail of remote work, remote and virtual work for individuals, and some key aspects. If you're going to take on board remote work, it's important to communicate often, to establish open lines of conversation, to work effectively. So remember to designate a workspace for focus in your home, to establish a routine that works best for your schedule, and block working time in your calendar. Important to also embrace technology, utilize all technology tools, virtual meetings, video conferencing, SMS and messaging applications, as well as virtual workspaces. Be accessible. I think with working remotely, we don't have the strict work schedule that we had in the past. So we need to remain contactable via phone, through other technologies. We need to be visible. We need to check in with teams if you're working with others. And don't be afraid to power down at the end of the day. I've often found that working remotely, there are expectations that people are available 24/7, and we need to be mindful of this. We also need to manage expectations, reviewing our performance with our team leaders and others, and also look at feedback. Double down on practices that work for your team. So always look for feedback, whether it's positive or negative. And some general tips are: be ready to support and offer support to employees or fellow workers with varying degrees of technical knowledge to optimize and set up their environment for success. So I think remote working allows for sharing, interaction, change management, those sort of things. So I'd like to slot something in here to make us just pause for thought a minute. Work is a never-ending process. It can never be completed. So the interest of the client is important, but your family is too. If you fall in life, neither your boss nor your client will offer you a helping hand. Your family always will. Life is not only about work. There's more to life. So you need time to socialize, entertain, relax, and exercise. Don't let life be meaningless. And I know sometimes people are really feeling mentally down during COVID. This is another measure of resilience to build you up, to keep your life worthwhile and purposeful. You did not study hard and struggle in life to be a machine. So love your job, but don't love your company, because you may not know when your company stops loving you. And success in life is like an iceberg. So sometimes people only see the top of this image. They see the rewards, the awards, but they don't see what is underneath this iceberg. And so these are some key things to getting to success, to achieving your goals. There are going to be rejections, sleepless nights, tears, expenses, persistence, a growth mindset, obviously a lot of disappointment. But these are some of the things that people don't see that you need to be aware of when you move forward and change the way you're going to work. So there are various options, okay? Sometimes people are in their current workplace and they are unhappy. You need to consider, do you stay? Do you go? Look at the pros and cons and think about that. Ongoing learning. So as I mentioned before, there are a lot of e-learning platforms where you can learn more while you're still working, while you're thinking of changing to doing something else. There are new avenues. Can you become an entrepreneur? Can you freelance? There's a lot of freelancing at the moment, a lot of freelancing options. And you'll look at a TED talk that I have later on about how someone has harnessed being a digital nomad, which is a talking point in the current era. And also consider career change. Some people have been very successful when they have taken the initiative to change their career and move on and do new things. So how do you build resilience, you might ask? You can make connections. As I mentioned before, networking is very important. Help others, empower others. If you have a skill, maybe you can use it to train and build others. Put yourself into a daily routine when you work. Also remember to take a break and look at self-care and have a positive self-view as well. Be goal-driven, but take it in a stepwise fashion. Don't expect to achieve all your goals in a few minutes or a few days. Look at the long-term perspective. Also, during this process, look at self-discovery. Look very clearly at yourself. What are the negatives? What are the positives? What have you achieved and what can you next achieve? And also look at change management. I think this last point is very difficult. We are not very amenable to change. We need to be forced to change, but sometimes change in the long term can be very good for us. So here are some core beliefs. You have control over your life. You can learn from failure. You matter as a human being. You have real strengths to rely on and share with others. And there are 4 frameworks that I always think of when I gave a previous resilience workshop in October 2019. I honed in on these even before the days of COVID and the pandemic and challenges. Even before COVID, we had challenges. And what are our 4 pillars that can keep us going? I think some faith and religious beliefs, your family, your friends, and some fortitude and perseverance to keep you going. So keep your cup filled. And by that, I mean, don't neglect your nutrition, your exercise, your sleep, the passions that you have in your life as well. Have certain passions, your motivation, your time management, and focus on your own happiness more than what other people think of you. If you're going to do something different and you get critique, ignore it. If you are going to meet your goals, don't always think about what other people are going to think. Be brave, challenge yourself. So some next steps that you need to consider, because there are retrenchments, there are retirements, and sometimes there are resignations. So negotiate a package if any of this comes forward and you need to deal with it. Look at having some counseling, some post-traumatic stress counseling. And just to mention Lifeline, they are wonderful. There are also other helplines that can help you if you really feel down and you need some support. If you're unemployed, look at the unemployment insurance fund that is available to people who are not been working but have been contributing to UIF for many years. Look at your CV and your cover letter and draft this very carefully. There are a lot of people out in the community who can assist you with this. Remember to include references and referrals. Build a social media platform, and LinkedIn is really good if you're looking for work to connect with others, and build a good LinkedIn profile, very important in the business world. Study new skills. If you can't find a job, then do volunteer work, help others before self, and opportunities do arise, because that's where I went first. When I was retrenched, I went to do volunteer work, and it opened up a lot of avenues. I made a lot of connections. And don't be shy. Look at any new work opportunities. UIF, just to talk about a little bit about how this works, any workers who contributed to UIF can claim if they've been let go, retrenched, or if their contract have expired, or if the employer is bankrupt. It's also important to note that foreigners who are employed permanently in South Africa also qualify for UIF, and I've given there some helpful links that will help you with UIF and how to claim UIF, and if you need guidance. So it will be in the presentation if you need support there. Some skills that you need to move ahead in life, Microsoft Office package. I would focus on getting good beginner skills, at least in Microsoft Office, Excel, PowerPoint. And if you can get advanced or intermediate skills, that's even better. Technology skills, how to use your laptop, how to schedule and attend meetings, very important. Business writing and emails. I did a presentation previously, and I think it would be available on YouTube, where I give you tips on business writing and how to write good business emails as well. Your soft skills, you need to develop emotional intelligence when you are working in the workplace, not only with your boss, but also with working with others. So you can look at some courses in building your emotional intelligence, developing your communication skills, and again, network as much as possible. Job opportunities that are out there. So as I mentioned before, volunteering is one way to go. You won't get paid, but it can open up a lot of connections and opportunities. Look at new avenues. There are career portals as well. Look at mentoring and coaching others. If you have skills available, you can help others and maybe earn a living like that. And being an entrepreneur. Do you want to sell something? Do you want to start a small business? You may start off small, but it's some way to go. Look at maybe getting mentorship as well to guide you in developing your business. So those are just some of the job opportunities out there. If you're going to look at starting your own business, you need to make sure that you are on LinkedIn to build your networks. Your branding is really important. Get some people to help you with your branding. Remember, social media, it's good to have a presence on Facebook. These days, a lot of people are on Instagram and Twitter and use WhatsApp as well. Again, network when you're developing your own business, really important. Some steps to success. So cherish social support and interaction. Always treat your problems as a learning process. Develop the habit of using challenges and opportunities. And I think it's important to know that stress and change are part of life. Celebrate your successes. Take time at the end of each day to review what went well and congratulate yourself. And also develop realistic life goals for guidance and a sense of purpose. Take positive action. Doing something in the face of adversity brings a sense of control, even if it doesn't remove the difficulty. And nurture a positive view of yourself, and therefore you'll build your resiliency that way. Keep a realistic perspective and practice optimism. Nothing is either wholly good or bad. Make your thinking work for your benefit. Some key messaging. The power's in you not to only bounce back, but to surpass heights you never thought you could achieve before. So 5 steps to reach your goal. Start by trying. You need to sometimes deal with distraction, no matter. You need to get specific. Take the eyes off the prize and think of a process, a journey, a process mindset, and be brave and reframe. I can build the skill. I can do something through change. So 10 tips for good work relationships. If you are going to work with people out there, whether remotely or if you go back to a physical workspace, get to know people, be a good listener because you can learn that way, make other people feel important, try and avoid arguments. Ask for advice if you need help, especially in this technological era. We do need advice from others. Sometimes I even ask for advice from my daughter, who knows a lot more about technology than I do. So don't be shy to ask for advice. Show you care and show empathy. I think that's really important in these COVID pandemic times with the challenges that we're facing. Another thing is don't use people. One of my previous bosses said, be very careful how you treat people on your way up on the ladder because you may meet them on your way down the ladder. Always bring something to the table, contribute in meetings, in webinars, pose your questions, add your advice, share with others, and be consistent in what you do. So some tips from a centenarian that I'd like to add. So someone who lives in Killarney, Rivera, Rose Norwich, she marked her centennial birthday on the 2nd of January this year. While COVID-19 prevented any in-person celebration, the occasion was a special one indeed. She was born in Johannesburg in 1929. She has notched up endless accomplishment. She completed a degree in architecture at 22 and went on to devote much of her life to Jewish communal organization, including Ortjet in the 60s. She says, my husband passed away 25 years ago. I've been lonely, but I can't sit around and do nothing. I may be a little more tired than I used to, but I can still see and hear. I need to keep busy. I've learned firsthand that when push comes to shove, you need other people in your life. You can't do it alone. You have to put your foot in the water to get going, be open to all sorts of things, and go out there to see what's what. So that's some tips from someone who turned 100. So just to discuss a little bit about how the world of work is changing by Jacob Morgan. He says the key things are that we have technology and connectivity. Technology now impacts how we work, where we work, the type of work we do. Companies are best positioned for future leverage technology to increase productivity and efficiency. This has given certain power to employees. There's been a power shift. This has put employees in the driver's seat. Instead of having to explain to companies why they need to work there, companies now must explain to employees why they need them to work there. And then human organizations and leadership. No company can exist without people. People are the most valuable resource. Human organizations allow employees to be unique and encourage leaders to act as coaches and mentors instead of just telling everyone what to do. So this has changed from the past. So there's 7 levels of organizational consciousness. I'm going to go through this very briefly, and you can look at it in more detail when you get the slide set. I think our levels of consciousness talk to service, making a difference, internal cohesion, transformation, self-esteem, relationship, and survival. So these impact the way we work now. And I think for me, a critical aspect is number 4, the continuous renewal and learning. All the others belong to this and fall as part of this. So these are very, very important, that we have continuous learning, renewal and learning, that we have accountability, adaptability, empowerment, teamwork, that we're goal orientated, and we also allow for personal growth. And we also need to have nurturing mindset. If we are leaders, we need to nurture our employees, our colleagues, and we need to look at some of these 10 key aspects. So we want people to self-improve. We want them to be able to deal with personal challenges and have different ways of learning, recognizing opportunities, being patient as well, be inspired. As a good leader, a manager, a colleague, we can inspire others, but we also need to believe in ourselves. We need to be open to criticism in the workplace, whether we're working remotely or in a physical workplace. We need to give constructive and take constructive criticism. And the whole process and the results is all goal-driven. We need to focus on day-to-day processes to improve, and the results will follow. And we need to have a sense of purpose. One of my gurus, I would say, is Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. If you haven't read his book, please do so, because he said in life, to have meaning in our lives, we need to have a sense of purpose. And so we also need to develop and build a positive team culture, really important. I've given some tips here. You can look at them, but just to highlight a few, we need to respect others. We need to set goals. We need to take responsibility. Praise is very important. I think we thrive on praise. If we can praise each other and just highlight the positive instead of the negative. Also, build our teams is really important, and have clear expectations and communications when we're working with others, even in this new kind of work environment that we're working in. Also, we need to understand people's motivations. We want to build a successful, but not only a successful, but happy teams, a happy workforce. And I really thought this is a good website to look at. It's called Pop Your Career. It gives some tips on how to be in a happy workforce and how to lead and manage others. I think one of the key things is to foster a joint purpose, and also to look at culture fit when we hire people, and set clear expectations of others as well. So you can change your life in a year. And the way you can do it is by remove negative people around you. Commit 500% to your goal. Stay humble. Learn from all the mistakes. Keep building relevant skills and reinvent yourself. I think there's no ways we can carry on the way we were. We need to continue reinventing ourselves in the current working situation. So is remote working here to stay? And I think even with vaccines on the horizons, how and where you work may never be the same. 20% of the workforce that can operate remotely can do so now. More than half of workers cannot work remotely for whatever reason, but I think a lot of people will be working remotely. This is a McKinsey cartoon that you can look at. They did a lot of studies on remote working. A lot of people are happy to even work a few days a week remotely and work only 1 or 2 days at the office. Otherwise, we can maybe move towards a hybrid of both or entirely remote work. So it depends on how you see yourself and what sort of work environment you work in. So some take-home messages: to successfully navigate challenges brought by any disaster, organizations need to identify their key services in advance, decide how they would continue those services in the face of disaster, and also be able to adjust quickly or change to ensure those services continue no matter what problems arise, and be prepared for any sort of disaster well in advance. Well, I don't think we were, but I think we're learning from COVID how to deal with future disasters and how to pivot. Pivot has become a very important word during the pandemic. So I like this significant quote, and this comes from Winston Churchill. He made a great remark that success is the ability to go from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm. And I think we need to be aware of that. I'm also sharing a website. This is a very busy slide, but a very useful website. They did a little bit of research on the workplace of 2030. What will it look like? So I'd just like to go through it briefly. The places to work. So in the future, we're going to have different quiet areas that workers have choices where they want to work, eliminating assigned seating altogether, or people will work purely from home. We'll have smaller individual organizations, smaller corporation with so much opportunity for collaboration. There'll be no need to build a costly big business. There'll be less hierarchy. Everyone will be a leader. Work will thrive in teams. There'll be no dictators. A big emphasis on wellness. I think we're working towards that. Healthier environment. We need good lighting, relaxation areas, music, pets at work, etc., as mentioned in this article. The need for a chief of work role will set the culture organization. This role could also feature among the best jobs for the future. We're going to look at flexible floor plans. When workers arrive at their office building, they'll have wearable devices. We'll let them know what floors to go to. That can be changed based on sensor data. Goodbye desks. There won't be any physical desks. Employers will just park themselves anywhere and could have a simulated office before their own eyes. There'll be robotic assistant. I quite like this. All workers at all levels will be using robotic helpers in the futures like Siri or Alexa to sort through incoming mail, schedule meetings, create spreadsheets, etc. There'll be smarter brainstorming. Meetings will take place between different groups of workers in multiple locations, allowing seamless sharing of ideas and brainstorming across different time zones. I think we're already doing this in COVID, and it's so interesting and enlightening. And also we'll have the virtual water cooler. Informal get-togethers will take place via the virtual and augmented reality headsets. So very exciting future that we're looking at. Just to mention some references here, if you like extra reading materials around building resilience in the workplace, and generally the workplace for the future, you can read and look at some of those authors. And that is all for now, unless there are any questions. And once we've answered all the questions, there's a very exciting TED Talk I'd like to share with you by Sarah Cohen, looking at the surprising power of remote work. So thanks very much, and thanks for your attention.
So Sarah, I have a comment from Philip. Philip says remote work, like remote study, is a matter of self-discipline, which, correct, as in the old normal, has fluctuation levels depending on what was or is happening.
That's very true. Thanks, Philip. That is true. And I must say, you need to be a disciplined person. I also had to learn that discipline in the beginning when I started doing remote work. And I've been doing remote work, I think, since about 2019. As well as on-site work. So it does take a lot of discipline, getting up every morning, planning your day, and time management, really important. Yeah, so thanks for that insight.
if I can chat to you just quickly over the web here. So I've been working on a project, but it's one that's not going to happen immediately. It's going to probably happen 2 or 3 years down the line, because I need a whole team of people in specialized areas to actually help me with specialized knowledge that I need to get them all together first. Call it assemble them, because otherwise I cannot do it. But I've done the framework for that project.
Yeah, so that's good. I mean, that needs to build on that and networking. And have you developed a LinkedIn platform or maybe
platform? Yeah.
Yeah,
but
I think
I
you need to do that.
What I'm saying now on it, because I need to. There's some fine details that I need to polish up before I post it up there, because it needs to look right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe you need to look at getting yourself a mentor as well to assist you with this. I'm not sure what sort of technical expertise you would need in your business, or what type of business you need, but maybe speaking to one of the mentors can help you with this.
I probably would need. I've got an idea of what's going on in the particular framework of what I'm looking at, and but I'm not sure if I've got all the people or the right profiles of people that I'm actually looking for, and that's what I need to fine tune.
Right. Okay. Well, best of luck. And I think if you need assistance, you can probably contact Jet, for a mentor to assist you.
Yeah, well, I am on I have been on their mentorship program since about, I think,
last year, Philip.
It actually started before that, Tracy, before you and Ariella joined, and Laurie. It was with the old team of people there back in 2012, 2013. Yeah, I think that's probably where I started, where you probably got my email from originally.
Yes, yes. So yes, and like Sarah was saying, anyone that feels that they need access to a mentor, it was one of the key points in Sarah's presentation, please do not hesitate to contact me. My details will be in the post-webinar communication that